Introduction. Think for a minute about where you live and where you spend most of your days, whether at work or school or just out and about. For most of us, these places are in cities or suburbs or other populated areas surrounded by lots of other people. Such is the reality of modern life in the United States. We've spun a web of interconnected networks of communication and transportation and rely on a vast and complex infrastructure to hold it all together. Getting around, staying sheltered, and finding nourishment are easy, requiring little effort on an individual level, so long as all of this is working as it should. But the price of this convenience for most people is a disconnection from the land and the basic resources that sustain us. With this disconnection comes a loss of knowledge of what to do and where to go in the event of a major disaster or other disruption of our interdependent lives, so insulated from the realities of nature. Do you know where you would go if disaster struck near you? Have you studied the exit routes that will get you out of congested areas when they become gridlocked in the event of a major breakdown? What would you take with you if it all had to fit in a single bag or pack that you could carry on your back? More importantly, where will you go if you do survive a mass exodus and make it to the surrounding countryside? Are you familiar with the uninhabited areas of your region? Are you aware that no matter where you may be in the lower 48 states, there are still remote tracts of land within a reasonable distance that offer safe hideouts and everything you need to survive for the short term and possibly longer? If you've thought about these things, you're far ahead of most people who will be clueless if they are ever tested in times of real trouble. Bug Out is not another how-to manual on the subject of survival or living off the land. A recent surge of interest in the subject has already resulted in many excellent and comprehensive books, as well as popular television documentaries such as Man vs. Wild and Survivor Man, and instructional DVDs where viewers can see survival techniques demonstrated and explained. Those who want to delve more deeply into survival can choose from a variety of qualified instructors offering hands-on courses at every level. Rather than repeat the how-to information, my focus here will be the where-to of survival. First of all, I am not assuming the usual scenario of a lost hiker, downed pilot, or other unfortunate individual who is involuntarily thrust into the wild and must survive while awaiting rescue or attempting to find a way out. Instead, I will look at voluntarily getting away from other people and finding a place sufficiently isolated to provide the essentials for short or long-term survival, using the resources nature provides. The first step in this sort of preparation and in gathering the knowledge you need in order to know where to go is to accept the possibility that such preparation and knowledge might be needed. What could possibly happen that would require you to abandon everything you know in your comfortable surroundings? What would it take to make you head off to the nearest swamp or mountain wilderness, reduced to trying to live off the resources of the land? The reality is that our present way of life is more susceptible to disruption or total breakdown than most people care to acknowledge. Several events in recent years bear this out and show that nothing is certain other than uncertainty itself. The unprecedented terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, revealed that enemies who are creative enough can find a way to strike, despite our seemingly impregnable military defense systems. Natural disasters, while usually local in impact, can cause utter chaos, as was seen when Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast in 2005. As a resident of southern Mississippi, living in the impact zone of this huge storm, I witnessed firsthand the devastation it left in its wake. This was an event that completely shut down the infrastructure of a large part of two states, Louisiana and Mississippi. Thousands of miles of roads were washed away by the storm surge or rendered impassable by fallen trees. Phone lines and cell phone towers were destroyed, erasing all communications in the region except for the few agencies equipped with satellite phones. The power grid was shut down not only in the coastal areas, but hundreds of miles inland, and it stayed down for weeks. For those with a preparedness mindset, the real lesson of Katrina was the desperation it caused among those left with nothing in the days and weeks that ensued. The authorities were caught unprepared and unable to respond to an event of such magnitude, and the result was a good example of what can happen when all the comforts of modern life are stripped away in the midst of the suffocating heat and humidity of a Gulf Coast summer. Many people recognized the need for self-reliance and cooperation with their neighbors and worked together to survive and improve their situation. Others waited on outside help that was slow in coming and did little to help themselves or those around them. Still others took advantage of the situation by hoarding what they had and reselling it at exorbitant prices to those less fortunate who were left with nothing. This included food, generators, tools, and especially gasoline. Gasoline was in short supply, with all stations either sold out or unable to pump what they had because of the power outage. Lines stretching for miles formed at the few stations that did have fuel to sell, leading to impatience, arguments, fistfights, and even a few shootings. In another category altogether, beyond the impatient and overstressed victims of the disaster, were those who deliberately took advantage of the situation to pillage, loot, and rob in the lawless and mostly abandoned communities left in the storm's wake. Most of the world saw some of what was happening in New Orleans on television, but many more incidents across the region went unreported. It was a dangerous time for anyone who had to travel in the area, and it remained that way until the streets were once again lit by electric lights and order was restored, along with supplies of food, fuel, and drinking water. In some areas, security was not re-established until large numbers of armed National Guard soldiers were sent in to take control. Hurricane Katrina had a tremendous impact in the limited geographical area it affected, but those who had the means to get out of its path or leave the area shortly afterward could simply travel far enough inland to avoid all the inconvenience and danger of the aftermath. Imagine a scenario, though, where this sort of breakdown is much farther reaching. It could happen. History has proven time and time again that no society, no matter how advanced, is immune from failure or destruction. Living in a time when life is easy, surrounded by an incredible array of technology and presented with more lifestyle options than individuals have ever enjoyed in human history, it is easy to get complacent. It is easy to forget how thin is the veneer of civilization that separates us from our ancestors, and how quickly many will revert to savagery if it is all stripped away.